Buenas tardes, Roswell, Nuevo Mexico, and good evening, Eastern New Mexico University. Uh, Sorry I can't be there with you in person. We love Roswell. We've been to Roswell. My wife and I were looking forward to coming back to Roswell, and I'll be there as soon as I can once this COVID mania passes. I'm so glad you're reading my book, and I'm so happy you invited me to speak to you. And I hope I can tell you some tidbits and gossip about the novel that'll, enlighten certain parts of it. So I'm here to talk to you about Into the Beautiful North. I hope you enjoy it. So much to talk about. I'm going to try to get it in 35 minutes if I can. Um, just a little bit about me. You probably know this, but I was born in Tijuana. I was raised in San Diego. Currently living out here in the ice and snow in Illinois, outside of Chicago. I teach at the University of Illinois at Chicago. So any of you writing students want to come study with me, come do it now while I'm still teaching. um, so into the beautiful North. I don't know if you know this about me or not, but I was the first person in my family to go to college. And after I graduated from college, the University of California, San Diego, various things had happened in life, some of them pretty rough um, for my family. And I wanted to do something meaningful. I didn't know what that meant. I was a writer. I went for writing. Um, and I was invited to go back to Tijuana, my hometown, though we lived in San Diego, with a missionary crew, some Baptists. And I was not any kind of Baptist, but I spoke fluent Spanish. And I loved the pastor who ran this outreach. It was relief work, helping the poor, helping garbage pickers, helping prisoners, helping orphans, prostitutes, you name it. It was an amazing time. So I became the translator, and I was there, you know, being the voice for the pastor. And I learned quickly, it was a good lesson for a writer to learn that if you have that gift of speaking, then you have the responsibility of listening. And I think listening to everyone's stories changed my life. And I don't even have time to tell you, but maybe when we meet live in March, I can we can talk about that. But there were people in the Tijuana garbage dump who lived by picking trash, and one of the women there became a very close friend of mine. I met her when she was 6 years old. Long story short, she had a daughter named Nayeli Cervantes. And so Nayeli, I've known her since she was born, almost since the day she was born. So Nayeli in the book is based on a real person, and you're going to be surprised how many people in the novel are based on real people. So Nayeli basically 1 year did a This American Life episode with me, with my family. You can hear it if you like that sort of thing. It's at thislife.org. Free. You can hear the podcast. It's called Trash. You'll hear her voice. But the producer, the reporter slash producer that was recording everything, took us, as thanks to her, to a fancy supper, something she never got, and she and her mom. And we took them into downtown Tijuana, and we had a seafood feast. Lobster, crabs, clam, oysters, shrimp. It was off the hook, as my kids say. And it was great, except that Nayeli had not eaten shellfish before, and nobody knew that she was allergic to them. And on the way back to her barrio, she went into anaphylactic shock. And there was a lot of drama and trauma both around it. She was choking to death in my arms, and we took her to a clinic, one of those, I don't know if you guys have this phrase around Roswell, but the fresas, the Mexicans who are better than the poor. We have that in the U.S. too, of course, but we got her to a clinic and the doctor wouldn't treat her. And when we asked why won't you help this girl? She's going to die. And he said she's an Indian. Es India, which still burns me up so bad. But the producer actually put him on the spot and stuck the microphone in his face. He had a mic with him, and he said, I want you to tell our listening public all over the United States, all over Mexico, all over Europe and Spain, why you are planning to let this girl die in front of you because you're a racist. He flipped out. The power of the media. I didn't know anything about the power of the media till that moment. And he said, no, 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 señor. No, 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 no. Es un error. It's a mistake. I'm not a racist. No. He just needed to give her one shot to save her life. So he did, under pressure. We took her back. She, in those days, was as described at the beginning of the book. Very short, a soccer star, tough kid, indigenous, Mexican indigenous, and always smiling. And when we got her home, I said, I almost lost you. And she said, I know, Luis, I know. And I said, you almost died right in front of me. And she said, no, yes, it's okay, Luis. And I said, it is not okay. It's the definition of not okay. And I got all inspired. And I said, you know what, Nayeli, one of these days, I'm going to be famous, man. And when I get famous, I'm going to write a novel and make you the hero. And she was like, I see. I said, you just watch. So I got some books published and they did well. And I had done a book called The Devil's Highway where I had to, hook up with the U.S. Border Patrol and investigate a terrible death event in the desert. And I wrote a novel called The Hummingbird's Daughter, which had taken me 25 years to write. So I was tired and burned out in a lot of ways. And so one day I thought, I'm just going to write something to make me happy. I'm going to write a book that makes me laugh every day. And I didn't know if it'd be published or not. I just wanted to write that. And I wanted to represent. And so, of course, that was my chance. I thought, Nayeli's going to have a big adventure, but what's going to happen, right? And if you're a writer, and I know there are writers here, but tell me if you're like this, but some of your working day is spent with a cup of coffee, looking at the ceiling, In my house, it's listening to something like Nine Inch Nails really loud, drinking coffee, dog at my feet. And these ideas start coming. And I thought, so Nayeli, where would she live? I'd put her in my family's hometown, which is in Sinaloa. It's called Rosario, Sinaloa. But I was going to hide its identity, so I called it Three Shrimp, Tres Camarones, which is a stupid name. Little joke, Tres Camarones. But that town is the town of Tres Camarones. And the movie theater, El Cine Pedro Infante, that begins all the action, is actually my uncle's movie theater in Rosario, Sinaloa, where I used to go when I was a kid to see Mexican movies and American movies, but dubbed into Spanish. So I thought, well, okay, so we got the town, we got Nayeli, we've got the movie theater, but what could happen? And I thought, so people in those days, because of the Devil's Highway, were sending me articles about what was happening in Mexico. This was 2005, 6. So that was that era when so many men were coming north and not going back. And so parts of northern Mexico were without males, basically. They had abuelitos and little kids, but young men and men of age were gone. And what was really interesting to me was this opportunity for women to start taking power. I'm sure you remember those days where there were first women sheriffs, right? Women lawyers, women directors of schools. the women who were in charge of child welfare in Tijuana, who inspected the orphanages. They were two young women. Um, there were even women projectionists in the theaters for the first time. And I thought that's a great thing for a story, Nayeli. Who could be mayor? Who would be mayor in my dad's hometown, Rosario, Sinaloa? And I hit on Tia Irma, the character in the novel, who is, in fact, my own Tia Irma. My Tia Irma Urrea was Mexico's international bowling champion. First woman international bowling champion. And people ask me, kids don't, because kids don't know who this is, but Yul Brynner has a great role at the beginning of the book, right? Yul Brynner. Well, that was my tia. She loved Yul Brynner. She called him Yul Brynner. El Yul Brynner. And now that I'm a dad, I've got daughters, I know you sisters fight for no reason all the time. So my tia Irma and my tia Flaca, La Flaca, so she was wild. Tia Flaca was wild. I don't have time to tell you much about her. She's not in the book. She'd be mad. But she was a grouchy one. And Tia Irma was pretty grouchy too. Tia Irma was the scariest person I ever met in my life. She was intimidating. So one day, these two had the sister fight. Tia Irma announced one day in Tijuana, the best Mexican movie star in history era Yul Brynner. And my tia Flaca with her cigarette was like, oye, mensa, Yul Brynner, it's not a Mexican name. No, yes it is. I said, no, no seas estúpida. Yul Brynner no es mexicano. She said, I have bowled all over the world. I have bowled all over Mexico. I have been to Puerto Vallarta, and his house is in Puerto Vallarta, estúpida. I have proof que es mexicano. And they fought and fought and fought. And I thought, that's really stupid, but cool. So I thought, okay, Tia Irma becomes the first woman mayor of the town, and her first act will be to have a Yul Brynner film festival. And then the guy who owns the theater that she's pushed around, he likes Steve McQueen. And then all of a sudden the book happened. I thought, okay, he'll have a Yul Brynner film festival, but he'll show The Magnificent Seven because Steve McQueen stars in it too. So he'll be happy, she'll be happy, right? And that's when it all hit me. I thought, oh my God, all these girls and women and grandpas go into the theater to see the Yul Brynner Film Festival, and they're seeing Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner and The Magnificent Seven, and the young women who are under siege by bad men who have come to town get this idea. Why don't we go and do that? Let's go get some pistoleros to come save my town. Okay? So, Tacho, Nayeli's boss and best friend, who has the taqueria e internet. I actually have a picture of a taqueria / internet. It's just so people know I didn't just make that up. But there was one in Tijuana near the dump where Nayeli's family worked. It was a taqueria, and the guy had an old beat-up computer, but they could lock on to the internet. So that's where Nayeli works. And Tacho is the only gay man in the town, and he's inspired by a guy named Tacho, who was the at least only out gay man in Rosario. He wasn't a man back then. I was un hippie, in their opinion anyway. I was all hairy, you know. The first time I ever showed up down there, I had love beads on. I don't know if you know Sinaloan men, but you can imagine a blue-eyed, long-haired dude with love beads listening to Led Zeppelin down there. They didn't know what to do. And Tacho, I would see walking around, and he wore makeup. He was like in the street, and he was flamboyant, man. He was playing it. He was camping it up on the street. And I was totally fascinated by him. And I think my uncle and my dad thought don't let Luis meet Tacho because something terrible's going to happen here, you know. So they didn't want me to ever talk to him, but I would watch him. And over the couple of years, I would go and spend summers there, and I'd see him, and I realized that he survived by being himself. He survived all those locos and pickup trucks with the straw cowboy hats, you know, big belt buckles. He survived by being himself, and he would get in people's faces, you know. And the nickname for him among the girls in town was Tachito el Machito, because he was so macho that he scared everybody. They're like, okay, he was like, you know. So in 1980, I was there for Christmas, and my cousin Melba said, "Oye Luis, I've got to go buy some new shoes. I think it was for the New Year's Eve dance. Do you want to go?" And I said, "Where are you going?" She said, "Tacho's house." I said, "Tacho's house." "Tacho, Tacho?" I said, "Sí, hombre." Tacho sells women's fashions out of his closet. And I said, "Wow, vamos, vamos." And we went to his house, and there he was. And the way you see him in the book, first off, that's the first time I met him. He had a little bandana. He had put a beauty mark on. He was listening to music, and it was just the coolest, you know. And I got to tell him. I said, "Oye, Tacho, I've been watching you for years." And he's like, "De veras?" And I said, "Sí, hombre, I love you, man." He said, "Oh, really?" I said, "No seas así, you know, I don't want to be your boyfriend. I love you, man." And we had this great time, and the jokes he tells in the book are jokes Tacho himself told me. So off I went. I didn't know, you know, I didn't think I was ever going to publish. You have to understand, coming from Tijuana, raised in the barrio in Southeast San Diego, and then sort of being the undercover Mexican. I know I look Irish. Nobody in the white suburbs we moved to could tell what I was. It took till college to sort of reconvene all the beings that are in me, if you know what I mean. I know there are folks like me listening or watching. Um, so I didn't think people like us got a chance to publish books. But I was still writing because I couldn't help myself. So once the books started to happen, I just felt like I was on a rocket ship to heaven, right? So I'm writing it, and I'm thinking about Tacho and Nayeli and the gals who go with her. Um, the 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 girls in the group aren't really based on real people. Um, you know, Yolo it's a name I heard once in Baja California, Yolo Xochitl, and I really liked that name, so I just took that name. And La Vampi, the vampire, I thought it would be really funny to have a goth in a little town in Rosario, you know, near like Rosario in Sinaloa, because you'd never expect it, right? You know the goth kids. She was goth, all in black with black dyed hair and sad eyes and pale makeup and all that stuff. I thought that was hilarious. Um, and when the book came out, an extended family member, I think like a nephew or the son of a nephew or something, sent word to me that his daughter in Culiacan is a goth. And I didn't know, but she said, "Papa, at least Tio Luis understands me." So I thought, wow, that's a little miracle, isn't it? It still makes me happy to this day. So they undertake the journey. They come north. The border patrol agents that they run into are two agents that I know. You know, I try to give my friends spots. So Agent Smith is the supervisory agent who trained me when I did the Devil's Highway, and the other guy is a friend who lives here in Chicago, former Tucson sector agent. Um, and they go on this adventure in the United States, right? I need to talk to you about who is weirdly the most popular character I've ever written, and that's Atomico. If you haven't gotten that far in the book yet. Atomiko is the mad sort of samurai outcast that joins them, and he carries a fighting staff instead of a samurai sword. But I just want to say that harkens back. If you're a cinema fan and you like the Magnificent Seven, you might know or probably know that it was inspired by the Japanese Akira Kurosawa movie, The Seven Samurai. And in that movie, Toshiro Mifune is the rogue Ronin samurai that nobody wants. He's dirty, uncouth, he's got fleas, he's always scratching us. He's a cholo, basically. Órale, es un cholo el güey. Acting intentionally kind of challenging, like an old pachuco, but even worse. So, uh, the character is inspired by my cousin Hugo. Hugo Millán. Hugo Millán, hijo of Tia Flaca, that I told you about. Lived in Tijuana in the basement. Hugo was the most macho man you ever met in your life. You know that guy? He was that guy. 7 years old, he talked like this. Everybody was scared of Hugo. And Hugo would watch PBS from the United States on his TV in his basement. And he saw The Seven Samurai. He used to call me Lucci. I didn't like that. Other guys had macho names, you know. There was a guy, Hugo's cousin, who was known as El Quemapueblos, right? The man that burns down cities. I thought, wow, that's my kind of nickname. But for him, it was Lucci. It's like, little Lulu. I hated that. But the way he said it was cool. He told me, Lucci, I'm going to be Tijuana's first samurai. He always spoke English to me. I always spoke Spanish to him. I don't know why. We were both trying to prove something, I guess. And he went into training, trained himself to be some kind of a ninja. He would punch buckets full of gravel every day until his hands were rough. And he got a samurai sword. And when he drove around town in his pickup, he kept the samurai sword in his truck. And when people hassled him, because Tijuana can be a tough town, he would park the truck and he would jump out of the truck with his sword and chase them. So how can you not love that? I have that. People think Atomico is a great invention. I just kind of pumped up the myth of my cousin Hugo to write that guy. And it's funny because not now in COVID, but before COVID, for years, my wife and I, who is running the computer over here, you can't see her, we were invited to people's homes a lot, for literary dinners. And those nice ladies, they have the nice big fancy houses, and they'd always serve us beans. I'd always get a plate of beans. I thought, wow, at least cook them right, dude. But they would always say, Louis, we love that crazy kid Atomic. He's so spunky. And I'd say, I was amazed. I'd say, ladies, if Atomico walked in here right now, shaved head, covered in tattoos with that giant stick, you'd go jump out the window. You'd run for your lives. But that's when I realized that writing story really is sacred. I mean, you can make somebody be friends with or listen to or feel even related to somebody that they might not ever deal with in life. That's sacred. And I brought some show and tell, but I want to tell you this. One of my great, great mentors early on was Rudolfo Anaya from up in Burque. Rudy took me under his wing when I was pretty young. And we had this really interesting conversation once, which is one of my rules. And I'm giving it back to you because this is puro Nuevo Mexico, I think. This is, Rudy would tell me something like, "This is some Llano wisdom for you." But he told me, Luis, if you can take your abuelita in Tijuana and through the ritual of writing, turn her into the grandmother of some reader in Iowa or Nebraska, he said, you have committed the most powerful spiritual and political act anybody can do. So that's one of my little rules as I write. I think of Rudy all the time when I'm writing. I think that's a wise and beautiful thing. But I wanted to show you this because I thought you'd get a kick out of it. So fans give me stuff. It's great. And they give me Atomico stuff. I have Atomico coffee cups. I have Atomico rocks. I have, all kinds of swag. But this nice woman from Indiana made me his fighting stick, and I had to show this to you. I have to look on the monitor to make sure you can see it all right. Check this out. Look, the full-sized stick. She put a Hurst power shifter on the end so I could whack people with it. There are the wires. She added a bandana because, bato loco. Look at this. She put the electrical tape like in the book so I could spin it and knock people out if I wanted to. And then all the way at the end, she has the cans that seal off the end of it. I can never take this on book tour because imagine getting on a plane with this. I can't do it, but there it is. Wanted to show you. I think it's kind of fun. And the last little bit about the book is Kankakee, Illinois. She's trying to find her dad, and she keeps getting postcards. If you've read that far, she gets this postcard from him. The only mail she ever got from Kankakee, Illinois. And that was a popular little trope in the book as well. And we couldn't find the postcard I had described. So Cindy and I, my wife and I, have these little, we call them postcard ministries, where almost for every book, we make postcards for people who like them. I just found a packet that I'd never opened of the Kankakee postcard. I thought I'd show it to you. Let me make sure I'm get this. There it is. Oh, am I? There it is. Wish you were here, Kankakee, Illinois. That's the paranoid turkey that I write about, and that's the card that the dad sent because we actually made it. If you want one, I guess you can drop me a line. Give me your address. I have a bunch. And I wanted to mention the librarian who helps her when she gets to Kankakee. Mary Jo Johnston. That was the actual librarian in the Kankakee Library. And she became a good friend of ours. I got to do an event in Kankakee at the library about the Devil's Highway. And it was quite, I thought it was going to be a little country library with, 2 librarians with a plate of cookies. And it was this amazing event. 300 people, all of the field and farm workers from all around had come. And cops were there, and the mayor came, and I actually got the key to the city, which has never happened before or since, but it was great. And she and I became pals, and she was a very vociferous librarian in that she was not shy about giving me reviews of what I had written. Anyway, I got a chance to write an article about them for the New York Times, which made me super happy. So we have a really good relationship, and I wanted to honor the town. And while I was working on the book, Mary Jo passed away. She had been doing an event at the library. I believe she had a stroke or a heart attack. I don't remember. But she died. And the character was going to be inspired by her, but then I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and make it her. And we had stayed in touch with the other librarians, and I told Cindy, I said, don't tell them. She said, why not? I said, I don't know. Just don't tell them I'm writing about Mary Jo. It seems a little bit odd, but I just feel like I have to do it. And she said, you know, they're librarians. They're going to find out. I thought, oh, man. So we fessed up, and it turned out nicely that they, uh, they had a memorial day called Mary Jo Johnston Days, and we were invited as, you know, guests of honor. They put us in a fancy B&B and all this. But her daughter said to me, you know, my mom loved libraries more than anything in the world. And she said, thanks to you, she will always be in libraries. And, you know, that's one of those things you can just retire on. You know, fame, fortune, whatever. But something like that is so profound. Um, so I guess you can see what I'm actually doing. I get mistaken as a political writer or a rabble rouser. You know, I used to get death threats from those folks who tore up the Capitol recently. I didn't understand what was going on because, you know, just between you and me, I came out of Dirt Street in Tijuana dying of tuberculosis, man. And, you know, first person to go to college in my family. And the first person to go do missionary work. So I guess my confession to you is that it's a spiritual thing, really. I don't see it even as a career. Sometimes I do, and that's a mistake because it messes you up. But this is soul work for me, and I guess all of the work I'm doing, I don't realize it, but I realize later when I reread it, it's always about our journey, the soul's journey through this long, sometimes too short trip that we're on. So that's what I'm trying to do. The books are always funny because we're funny. We're all funny. You know it. You know it. So if we can laugh together, cry together, we can't get up from the table and hate each other afterwards. It just can't happen. So it's my little, you know, St. Francis complex that I'm trying to work out. So thanks for listening. I hope that illuminated some of the journey for you. And I really look forward to, I guess, later tonight, though it's in the future for me at this moment. I'll read to you, and then we can chat. I can answer some questions. Eh? Gracias, amigos.